Part 26. Shao's sweet wife, she is doted on. Author, Jin Yet. Chapter 251. Chapter 251. Who told her to be a girl? Yoon Chugseok glanced at her unpromising look and said, I'm really convinced by you. So, after so many years, you have been chasing someone lonely. It was hard for her to imagine that one person dared to pursue someone and the other person dared to refuse. Either take the person down ruthlessly, or simply give up and find another way out. It's a blessing to Soo Jin-ran that she can endure it by being hung like this. Don't talk about that now, so you can tell me, do I have hope or no hope? Well, it depends on what you think about it. Do you want to get his person or his heart? Yoon Chugseok tilted her head slightly and asked close to her. Frowning, Soo Jin-ran said, nonsense. Of course I have thought of it all. But the problem is that you haven't gotten anything, so if you can only get one thing, what do you want? She waved her index finger in front of her eyes and said, you can't be too greedy. If I give you a chance, there is only one answer. Think about it, do you want to stay with him forever, even if his heart is not with you, or do you want to stay with him even if he has you in his heart, but he can never be with you? This question stumped Soo Jin-ran. She has never thought about this problem. She has been chasing Yao all these years. What she wants is to be with him forever. Whether it is his person or his heart, it should only belong to her. But Chugseok was right. The problem now is that she can't catch both of them and will lose both of them. That. I want someone, she thought tangledly for a while, and finally raised her head as if she had made up her mind. What's the use of wanting him to have me in his heart? The person accompanying him is not me. How tortured it would be. As long as I can stay with him every day and stay with him forever, it will only be a matter of time before I win his heart. Nodding, Yoon Chugseok looked at her with a smile. Well, I think what you said makes sense. So, how can I get his people? Soo Jin-ran asked next. Before she opened her mouth, there was a quarrel coming from downstairs. It sounded quite loud and could be heard even from one floor away. The two looked at each other, and Yoon Chugseok stood up and walked out the door. Soo Jin-ran paused for a moment, then thought about it and followed. The two came to the stairs and looked down just enough to see the living room downstairs. There were two people downstairs, whom Soo Jin-ran knew. They were Yoon Chugseok's parents. She had gone to Yoon's house before and had met them twice. One was calm and steady, the other dignified and elegant. But at this time, the two were standing downstairs arguing. Without his usual reserve and posture. No, I will never agree. It can be seen that Yao Ying is still controlling herself. Although her emotions are on the verge of exploding, she still tries to speak in a calm voice. This is not just for mother and son, it's also for us. Think about it carefully. Yoon Jongchang put his hands on his waist and spoke seriously. Soo Jin-ran was a little embarrassed standing upstairs. After all, she seemed to be eavesdropping, but her parents were quarreling at the moment, so it seemed inappropriate for her to go downstairs. She should turn around and go back to the room, as she was afraid of disturbing those two people. And she looked in the direction of Yoon Chugseok, only to see her standing there without saying a word and with no expression on her face. She just held the stair railing tightly with both hands. He wanted to comfort her, but didn't know how to speak. The two people arguing downstairs obviously didn't realize that there were other people at home and were still arguing. Yao Ying turned around and sat on the sofa and sneered, for us? Huh. That's nice. To be honest, it's not just for yourself, but also for that little outside. Yoon Jongchang, why don't you go out and inquire? Asking, whose mistress can break into the house? Aren't you trying to slap me in the face? Why don't everyone in Haikan laugh at me? It's because of us. Look at you, are you in a small position? You don't know what's going on with the Yoon family now. Yun Chuao is unsatisfied and has no interest in the family business. My eldest brother still controls the business in hand and refuses to delegate power. It's my fault that I don't have the power. A son cannot inherit the family business for granted. Then again, if you had given me a son, you wouldn't have. Before he finished speaking, Yao Ying glared at her with resentment. Yun Zhongcheng paused, but did not say any more. After all, don't you blame me for not giving you a son? Yun Zhongcheng, I have been married to you for so many years, and I have managed this big family inside and out. Do you think it is easy for me? Old man, you are a loser, and you rely on me to take care of everything. You can't see how much I have paid for your Yun family. Now you blame me for not giving you a son? I didn't give birth to him, and you were looking for it outside. Did they give birth to a bastard? She slapped the coffee table loudly, as if she wanted to vent all the resentment accumulated in her heart over the years. Have I ever cared about you in these years? You secretly bought a house for someone outside and a car for that little bastard. And assigned him a job. I turned a blind eye to all of this, but now you are going too far, and you want to take him back to recognize your ancestors. I would like to ask you, which ancestor do you recognize and which sect do you belong to? Have you ever considered me or Chugzhou? Suddenly hearing the mention of her friend's name, Su Jinran subconsciously turned her head and glanced in the direction of Yun Chugzhou, and saw that although she seemed calm, her lips were tightly pursed into a line, and her hand holding the railing was even tighter. It seemed like my fingers were digging into the railing. Don't talk about anything else. What does this have to do with Chugzhou? This is between you and me. If you nod in agreement, you don't have to worry about anything else. Yun Zhongcheng waved his hand and said impatiently. After sneering twice, Yao Ying said, why doesn't it matter? Chugzhou is not your biological daughter? Was she born by you? Was she born by me? She is a direct blood relation of the Yun family. You don't think about your own daughter? Instead, you're busy working for a outside. Why didn't I see you buy a house or a car for Chugzhou? Why didn't I see you get equity in the company for her? After being scolded by his wife, Yun Zhongcheng probably felt that he could no longer hold his face, and his temper broke out and he yelled, who said she was a girl? How will my daughter inherit my property and take charge of our Yun family's company in the future? Do you want to let our Yun family's foundation end up with a foreign surname? His words shocked Su Jinran. I used to see an uncle who was kind when I came to visit him. I didn't expect him to be so patriarchal at heart. I didn't notice it from Chu Shui's behavior. She looked at Yun Chugzhou again, only to find that she had let go of the railing and turned to go back to the room. Maybe there were footsteps, or maybe the two people finally noticed something. Yao Ying raised her head and glanced upstairs, and was stunned. End of this chapter. Shao's sweet wife, she is doted on. Author, Jin Yet. Chapter 252. Chapter 252. This is unreasonable. Look at the good things you've done. Yao Ying glared at him fiercely and quickly got up and went upstairs. Su Jinran followed Yun Chugzhou back to her room, looking at her silent look, and wanted to comfort her, but didn't know how to speak, so he could only stand behind her, as if accompanying her like this could comfort her a little bit. On the contrary, Yun Chugzhou turned her head to look at her first and smiled. That smile looked forced and distressing. It was obviously a forced smile. She said, I'm sorry, I made you laugh. Don't say that. Su Jinran stepped forward and put his arms around her shoulders, suddenly feeling that his friend was more pitiful than himself. She couldn't get what she asked for, but Yun Chugzhou was facing her own biological parents. Her father had a mistress and an illegitimate child. Not only that, he was also so patriarchal that he would rather give the family property to other women and children than divide it. To my daughter, just because she is a daughter. Yao Ying was about to say something else, but Yao Ying had already come up. She raised her hand and knocked on the door as a polite greeting, then pushed the door open and entered. When he saw Su Jianran, he was slightly startled, probably because he didn't expect that there was anyone else there. However, she quickly reacted, nodded slightly to Su Jianran, smiled gently. "Jianran is here." "Hello, Aunt," Su Jianran greeted obediently. Yao Ying nodded, then walked straight to Yun Chugzio, stood in front of her, looked at her for 2 seconds before speaking. "Shuer, why didn't you go out to play with Zoran?" Obviously, she didn't mean to say this when she came, but when she saw Su Jianran was there, she changed her tune. "It's too cold outside, I don't want to go out," Yun Chugzio said calmly, looking down at the floor in front of her. "Yeah, it's getting colder and colder today. You see, Mom and your dad are busy with the company's business recently, and they don't have time to accompany you to buy clothes. Logically speaking, we should buy 2 more clothes. Come." Said then, she took out a card from her pocket, took Yun Chugzio's hand and stuffed it into her palm. "Jianran happens to be here too, you guys go buy some warm new clothes together, and help me see if there are any. There are no suitable new products and I don't have much time to go shopping," she said with a smile, as if what just happened had never happened and she had not been hit. Su Jianran was quite impressed by her adaptability and ability to deal with things. She was truly worthy of being the woman in charge of the Yun family's internal affairs. "Then let me help Dad take a look. He never cares about his own clothes." Yun Chugzio's words surprised Su Jianran. He originally thought that after hearing what she just heard, she would lose her temper or even cry. But not only did she not, but she even wanted to help her father buy clothes. Yao Ying was startled, then nodded with a smile. "That's fine. I'll buy 2 more scarves by the way. If you don't have enough money, come back and ask him for reimbursement. Then I will buy a few more pieces," Yun Chugzio said half-jokingly. Go, Yao Ying patted her back and smiled warmly. After tidying up a little, Su Jianran followed Yun Chugzio downstairs. Downstairs, Yun Zhongchen was sitting there smoking. Yun Chugzio ran over and hugged his neck. "Dad, I'm going to buy you some clothes and 2 scarves. If you don't have enough money, you have to reimburse me." Yun Zhongchen turned around with a smile and said, "Okay, reimbursement. I will definitely reimburse you. Then I'm leaving. Goodbye, Dad." After kissing him on the cheek, Yun Chugzio pulled Su Jianran out with a smile. Su Jianran. She felt bad when she saw this scene, feeling that there was something wrong with her head. Why? Could it be that what I saw and heard just now was all false? Just like when she was filming on the set, those were just lines, so she just said them and didn't take them to heart at all? Otherwise, how could Yun Chugzio be so calm and composed, still have a harmonious family with a loving father and a filial daughter, and still act coquettishly with her father? Sitting in the driver's seat, she silently started the car and drove Yun Chugzio out without saying a word. In fact, she hasn't figured it out yet, it's still a bit beyond her scope of cognition. This is unreasonable. This is unreasonable. Opening the small bag and taking out a small bag of snacks, Yun Chugzio tore it open with delicate nails and took out a small piece of dried apricot and handed it to Su Jianran's mouth. She glanced down and shook her head. Yun Chugzio didn't force it. Then he stuffed it into his mouth. "Do you think, after listening to what I just said, why am I still so close to my father and why do I still need to help him buy clothes? Should I cry and argue with him to fight for what I should have?" "Right," she said very calmly, as if she were an outsider telling other people's stories. "That's because I've known from a very early age that crying can't solve any problems." She chewed slowly, her eyes calmly staring ahead. "It doesn't matter if I cry, make noise, or quarrel with my dad. Well, can I change his mind and let him see my ability? Doing that will only make him hate me, think I'm ignorant, and think I'm competing with my half-brother outside. The more he thinks like this, the more obedient and sensible I have to be. He thinks that I am a girl and should do some things that girls should do. I will do what he wants to see and what he likes to see. At least I am in his heart. He is not a person who can inherit the family business, but she should be the daughter who makes him most comfortable. The more she spoke, the harder she chewed the dried apricots, biting them as hard as she could. Su Genran turned her head and glanced, feeling that her entire jaw was exerting force. First snow. I'm fine, you don't need to comfort me. You see, in fact, every family has problems that are difficult to recite. It's not a big deal, she shrugged and said disapprovingly, I asked you before, who wants to get him? I still won his heart, but I saw too much. You see, my mother is the one who got my dad, and that woman outside got my dad's heart. Su Genran didn't expect that this could all come back, but she vaguely felt that what she said made sense. Driving attentively, her ears perked up to listen to what Yoon Chug-seo continued to say. Her eyes had turned to the window, and she put one hand on the edge of the window, seeming to be trying to persuade her, as if she was murmuring to herself, back then, my father marrying my mother, it's true that she has real feelings for you, but so what? Men always like the new and hate the old. The more you care about him, the less he takes you seriously, and the more you ignore him, the more interested he becomes in you. Isn't it easy to get a man? That woman outside climbed into my dad's bed with a pack of medicine that catalyzes the love between men and women, and she got pregnant smoothly. If my mother hadn't been pregnant with me, she wouldn't have been able to do it. Well, it's already changed. After a pause, she turned to look at Su Genran, but my mother is also lucky. If that woman's family background is strong enough, I might be the illegitimate daughter now. End of this chapter. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Shao's sweet wife, she is doted on. Author, Jin Yet. Chapter 253. Chapter 253. I want to ask you something. Yoon Chug-seo seemed to have said it unintentionally, but Su Genran listened to it. The word slowly grew in her heart, took root, sprouted, and spread unscrupulously. The more she thought about it, the more she felt what her good friend said. Very reasonable. This is someone who has experienced it. Because he has witnessed it with his own eyes, he is like a bright mirror in his heart and can see very clearly, Su Genran thought. Then let's do it now. Of course I'm going to buy clothes, I promised my dad, Yoon Chug-seo said with a smile. Okay, Su Genran nodded, turned the steering wheel, and turned towards the commercial center. After being depressed for a few days, Su Yoon finally came out of that low mood. It was just a nightmare that brought back some unhappy things from her childhood. She couldn't be immersed in it just because of this past. Besides, in addition to the aromatherapy to be prepared for Grandpa, there is also the task of Marseille soap that must be completed urgently. Since she agreed, she must do a good job in this matter. The key to devoting herself to the laboratory is that Arian is still on vacation. Without a helpful assistant, she will be even busier by herself. Of course, there are some staff in the laboratory itself, but you can't understand it right away. Her intentions are not as easy to communicate as with Arian, and they still need to be worked out. He was already busy enough, but at this time, Lisa came over and said he was on a business trip to see her. He called her twice and made an appointment to meet her for dinner in the evening. If it weren't for the special person coming, Su Yoon really wouldn't want to go. Time is tight. But Lisa is her good friend and helped her a lot when she was in France. This is the side she wants to see no matter what. Hello to Yao and said he wouldn't go back for dinner that night, and then went to the restaurant he had made an appointment with Lisa. When he saw her, he almost didn't recognize her. The pure white down jacket with a large fur collar looked like it was specially tailored to outline her figure. After walking up to her and taking off the jacket, the tight dress underneath showed off her perfect figure to the fullest. Soo-yoon was stunned, not to mention the other diners, who looked sideways from time to time. After all, there are two beautiful beauties who are eye-catching, and they will still attract people's attention. I never noticed before that you have such a hot figure, Soo-yoon said with emotion, holding her chin in one hand and looking at her with her head tilted. It's so exciting. Lisa originally has a European and American figure. She is tall and has a large frame, but her proportions are very coordinated. Her body is uneven and she looks very hot and beautiful. Hey, career needs it, she said, waving her hand. Profession. Soo-yoon thought for a while. I seem to remember that you went to be a model, right? What does it mean? It's obvious. I said, Soo, you don't care about me too much. You can't be sure about this kind of thing. Lisa expressed dissatisfaction and waved her hand. The waiter ordered a plate of vegetable salad and a glass of lemonade. I'm sorry, I was wrong. Then I'll treat you, please order more delicious food. Seeing that she didn't order 2 dishes, Soo-yoon stopped the waiter and planned to add more dishes, but she stopped her. Don't, you forgot what I do, I can't eat, especially before walking on stage. You have a show recently, no wonder. She said she was on a business trip, and the co-author was here to perform on the catwalk. Lisa nodded, there is a show, so I'm here to ask you for a favor. Soo-yoon was puzzled. Please ask me for what? Please ask me to go to your show. She said half jokingly, but she really didn't know what she could do to help her in this matter. Looking at her angrily, Lisa said, if you have time, of course I hope you go to the catwalk. But it's not this thing, it's another thing. What? I want you to help me mix a perfume. She leaned forward and said, you're good at it. Soo-yoon widened her eyes and looked at her with a look like, are you kidding me? Are you kidding? Your father is the authority in this area, you want me to help you mix perfume? Hey, I knew you were going to say that, but it's not what you think at all. Although my dad is an authority and has a lot of respect in this industry, he doesn't understand me. Said with an annoyed look, looking very distressed. Soo-yoon almost laughed. Don't you understand her? Look at you, I'm telling you seriously, are you still smiling? Although Lisa looks hot, her personality is actually quite innocent and cute, and sometimes she acts like a child. No, 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 Soo-yoon waved her hand, suppressing a smile, I don't want to laugh, go on, why doesn't he understand you? The ones he mixed for me were all sweet and kid-friendly. I have grown up, but he doesn't understand. Originally, I could just buy 2 international brands, but you know we are in this industry. Basically, I spray it a little bit, I'm afraid it will be as embarrassing as wearing a shirt. I want something special. Hands clasped together, then he lowered his head and rested his chin on the back of his hands. He raised his head and looked at Soo-yoon, his eyes full of pleading, so, please. Well, it sounds like the requirements are not low. Of course she was teasing Lisa. In fact, this is not without precedent. Some big-name international supermodels, international superstars, etc. will find well-known perfumers to prepare exclusive perfumes for themselves. Not just them, some wealthy ladies and daughters of aristocratic families will do this. For these people, they are not short of money. What they are short of is how to highlight themselves more quietly in some social situations. At first, they were showing off cars, bags, clothes, and jewelry. Later, these were not enough to satisfy them, so they focused on perfume. Perfume can be described as a ceremonial presence in today's social situations. Everyone sprays a little bit. Although these people are not as good as professional perfumers, they can still know what it is by smelling it. Brand of perfume. Brands can no longer satisfy them. Uniqueness and taste are the ultimate pursuits. It is precisely because of this that most people are looking for internationally famous and top perfumers, and they will never look for an unknown person like her. She is still very immature in this circle. Of course the requirements are not low, otherwise why would I come to you, Lisa said directly, and I think you understand me. I want to be more mature and unrestrained. Blinking, she said that she was mature and no longer a child. End of this chapter. Shao's sweet wife, she is doted on. Author, Jin Yet. Chapter 254. Chapter 254. It's not me, it's you. Her move made Soo-yoon laugh. In fact, it is understandable. No matter how old the children are, they are still just children in the eyes of their father. Therefore, Mr. Will never make hot and unrestrained things for his daughter. A perfume that means passion, it is simply pushing your beautiful daughter away. But Lisa, who has grown up, is a little rebellious and desperately wants to prove that she has grown up. She does not want that sweet and childlike taste, so there is a conflict. I understand, it's not impossible, it's just. After a pause, Soo-yoon said, it's not possible recently. Huh, Lisa was very disappointed, isn't it possible recently? I can use it when I want to go on a catwalk. He shook his head and decisively cut off her thoughts, I really don't have time recently. I have 2 jobs on hand, both of which are very urgent, so I can't help you for the time being. If you can wait, then I will finish this work. Try it. If it's too late, I think it's better for you to find someone else. She said honestly, after all, she has been too busy recently. No, I don't want to find anyone else, I want to find you. I have already said that I believe in you, so you understand me. Lisa thought for a while and then said, it's too late, but I still want you to help me. I'll commission a special one that's just for me. Don't worry, the price will be very reasonable. Then help me get it when you're done. Then, okay, she had already said this, so Soo-yoon could only agree. While talking, the dishes were already served. Soo-yoon had no appetite recently and didn't order much. But even so, Lisa only ate the vegetable salad in front of her, not showing any signs of being tempted by the delicious food. Think about it, when she was in France, she had no taboos. Why did she come here and have such strict requirements on herself? I remember that you had no taboos before eating cakes and steaks. Why are you so strict with yourself now? Soo-yoon said curiously. After taking a sip of lemonade, Lisa raised her eyes and looked at her. That was when there was no work. Of course I could indulge myself a little. But when it comes to work, what can I do if I don't restrain myself? Hey, don't mention it. For with those few bites of cake and steak, how many sets of exercises do I have to do to burn off excess fat? What a sin. It is really a sin not to enjoy the delicacies of the world. But there is nothing I can do. In order to show the best physical condition on the catwalk and show the most beautiful posture to the audience, I can only be cruel to myself. Soo-yoon looked at her. The carefree and a little introverted little girl had grown up. Unknowingly, they were all walking their own paths in life. By the way, do you remember Helen? She quickly ate almost all the vegetables. She was obviously not full, but she also wiped her mouth and stopped eating. Yes, I remember. Nodding her head, Soo-yoon said of course she still remembered. She finally gave up. Lisa sighed with emotion. After all, they were still friends, but she didn't expect her to be like this. Huh, Soo-yoon didn't understand what it meant. I mean, she gave up the idea of using her child to return to Lin Shanjun. She explained again, and said, she had refused to give up before. I thought she would be entangled with Lin Shanjun for the rest of her life. In the end, I didn't expect that she would let go. Maybe I'm overthinking it, Soo-yoon said casually. After struggling for so long, I feel tired and don't want to continue. It's not impossible. But Lisa pursed her lips and shook her head in disapproval. No. I've known her for a long time. If she was someone so easy to think about, she wouldn't be so obsessed. I used to look after my children. It's pitiful. I thought she was only thinking about the children, so she wanted to bring them together. But after your incident, I discovered that she didn't care about Nanan's situation at all. She just wanted to use the children to achieve her goals. Then according to what you said, why did she give up? Lin Shanjun gave her a sum of money. I don't know the exact amount. I don't know what else he said to her, but Helen gave up at this point, Lisa said a little strangely, but she said something to me later that I didn't quite understand. What? She said, you have to think clearly, being someone else's stepmother is not easy. Don't think that Lin Shanjun is a good man and a faithful woman. Well, that's probably what he meant. After recalling it carefully, Lisa couldn't remember the original sentence. I can only restate the general meaning. Soo-yoon didn't understand either. Do you want to think clearly? It's not me, it's you, Lisa said, immediately correcting her statement. Me? Soo-yoon was very surprised. Yes, she was talking about you, that's why I found it strange. You and she only met that one time. I don't know why she targeted you so much. And the meaning of her words was that she thought you wanted to give Nanan when you become a stepmother. Does she think you want to be with Lin Shanjun? Lisa asked strangely. Soo-yoon, how do I know? If Lisa hadn't mentioned it, she would have almost forgotten about this person, and there was no way he could compete with her. Besides, after leaving France, except for Lisa and Mr. Wool, those few people with whom she had a close relationship, she thought that she would never see them again in this life, and they were all insignificant people. So it's strange. Nodding, Soo-yoon said, it's strange. But her brain circuit is a bit abnormal. Otherwise, using the idea of giving birth to a child to blackmail a man who doesn't love her at all is not something ordinary people can do. Hey, that's true, Lisa sighed. Lisa just thought it was strange, so she brought this sentence to Soo-yoon. Besides, she knew that Soo-yoon had a boyfriend. How could she and Lin Shanjun be together? By the way, how are you and your boyfriend doing? Are you okay now? He asked casually. Thinking of Sci-fi, he has been really considerate of her recently, maybe because he takes care of her emotions, so he spends a lot more time with her, and the affairs between the two of them are about to be made public. Very good, she smiled slightly, I'm getting married soon. Really? Lisa's eyes lit up, then I can be the bridesmaid. Soo-young-xiao, you think so far? However, she mentioned the word bridesmaid, and thinking about it this way, she seemed to be looking forward to the wedding. At the time when I received the certificate, I didn't think too far ahead, but today, I am so willing to do so. End of this chapter. S.I. Shao's sweet wife, she is doted on. Author, Jin Yet. Chapter 255. Chapter 255 His Most Lovely Little Wife. After saying goodbye to Lisa, Soo-yoon went to the most famous pastry shop in Sioux City and bought a box of shortbread cookies and 2 cups of hot coffee, which she packed in thermal bags. Sure enough, it was still hot when she got home. Yao was sitting in the living room reading information, with his 2 long legs folded together casually, turning pages with one hand, and holding a cup with the other hand, but the water in the cup was already empty. He lowered his head slightly, and a few strands of unruly hair hung down, just falling on his rimless glasses, adding a bit of elegance. Actually, Yao is not nearsighted, but he has a little bit of astigmatism, which usually has no effect. But when he is reading information and documents, he will take out his rimless glasses and put them on. I don't know if it's because he doesn't wear glasses often, or because he's good looking and looks good no matter what. Anyway, every time Soo-yoon sees him wearing glasses, she feels like she's in love all over again. Probably after hearing the noise, Sci-Yao raised his head and looked at her. Under the warm light, his eyes were sparse and shallow, and he looked towards her with a little tenderness. At that moment, Suyun felt that her heart fell again. "Hey, you evildoer! Back," he said, and took off his glasses. After taking them off, without the barrier of the lenses, the eyes became extremely sharp again, and the feeling was different again. To avoid looking like a nymphomaniac, she changed her shoes and walked over quickly, taking the empty cup out of his hand. "You don't know how to add some water when there's no water left. Do you not know how to take care of yourself?" As he said this, he opened the thermos bag and put the hot and fragrant coffee into his hand. "Here. I remember this is your favorite flavor." Sci-Yao chuckled lightly, put the information aside, took back his hand, opened the coffee lid, took a look, and took a shameless sip. "How do you know this is my favorite flavor?" "Nonsense. I'm your wife, can I not know what your favorite flavor is?" She seemed very courageous to say this, but in fact her face was getting hot. "Of course, after being with him for such a long time, I have some understanding of his tastes and preferences. It's just that before, I spent too much time on spices, perfumes, and aromatherapy, and ignored him." She wanted so much to achieve something, so much wanted to make up for the years she had missed, so much she wanted to shorten the distance between her and him as soon as possible so that one day she could stand shoulder to shoulder with him, but other than that, the two of them had nothing to do with each other. Personal feelings also need to be maintained and maintained. "Really?" He smiled slightly and reached out to pull her into his arms. Such a big move actually ensured that the coffee in his hand did not spill at all. "Yeah," Suyun sat in his arms and held his chest with both hands. "I'm cold, but you're warm in the room. Don't catch the cold anymore." It was very cold outside. Even after entering the house and taking off her coat, she could feel that the clothes on her body were still cool, but his body was very warm. "It's just right. I'm hot and you're cold. How about we neutralize it?" As he said this, the hand around her waist tightened and he hugged her tighter. Attached to his body, densely surrounded by his heat. As expected, the chill on the body was quickly driven away, and the person also warmed up. "I met Lisa today, and she asked me to help her make an exclusive perfume." Sci-Yao softly told him about his affairs, and nodded. "Well, that's good, just don't tire yourself too much." "Yes, so I said that I have been too busy recently. If I must, I have to wait. But I didn't expect that she would ask me to make customized models. I always felt that it would take at least several years for such a thing to happen to me. Without any qualifications or fame, who would ask you to do it? This shows that you have the strength," Sci-Yao said with certainty. Suyun laughed. "No. It's just that Lisa and I are friends, and she trusts me. Strength is not something you can just talk about, it needs to be proven in practice." Gently pushed him away and stood up, taking out the shortbread from the thermal bag. "I went to buy it specially. You like this too?" Sci-Yao glanced at it, put down the coffee cup in his hand, and lazily raised his eyelids. "You are so attentive today, do you have something to ask of me?" Suyun rolled her eyes speechlessly. "Of course not. I know I've been in a bad mood recently, and you've worked hard too. You've brought a lot of work home to do it for me, so it's only right that I buy you something to reward you." She said what was in her heart directly. Sci-Yao's eyes were filled with smiles. "Is that so?" His eyes slowly moved down from her face, to her slender neck, well-proportioned arms, and then to her wrists that were not tight enough to hold. The hands hanging naturally by her sides, palms facing out, looked soft. Of. Stretched out a finger, gently inserted it into her palm, and scratched it. Hitchhiked, Suyun shrank her hands, and Suyun glared at him angrily. "What are you doing?" "Actually." He raised his hand to unbutton the top button of his clothes and said slowly, "If you really want to reward me, There are many ways and you don't need to buy anything. Suddenly he grabbed her wrist and pulled it in his direction. With a flexible rotation of his body, he pressed her down and looked down at her, with fire shining in his black eyes. You are the best reward. Looking at his face, Soo-yoon swallowed hard. In fact, although his movement just now was very fast and he could not avoid it, it was because it was too sudden, so he did not fight back. It was also because it was him, so he did not want to fight back. Even though she was suppressed by him like this, her heart felt extremely stable. She looked at him with wide eyes and said, "I am willing to the extreme." These words seemed to light a fire in his heart. No, to be precise, it should have lit another fire on the small spark, completely igniting the flames. Sci-fi kissed her deeply, inserted his fingers between hers, and interlocked with hers. His most lovely little wife? Actually, due to the influence of my mood during this period, plus being very busy at work, I haven't been intimate for a long time. Now they are so overlapped that I don't want to be separated for a minute. Sci-fi. For a long time, Soo-yoon gasped and called his name. Let's get married, she said. Sci-fi raised his head and looked at her. Licking her lips, she added, I mean, let's just have the wedding. There's no need to get engaged or anything like that. There's no need to take that extra step just to tell the world that they are together. We are together openly and openly. Seeing that he didn't respond, Soo-yoon hesitated and said, You don't want to. He lowered his head and bit her earlobe punitively. He said softly, Fool, how can I let you speak about such a thing? End of this chapter. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Shao's sweet wife, she is doted on. Author, Jin Yet. Chapter 256. Chapter 256. Are all their men blind? The two of them reached a consensus on the matter of marriage, and Sci-fi happily began to prepare for the wedding. As for the previous report, I have long forgotten about it. However, everyone in Sioux City knew that Mr. Si from Huanya had a girlfriend, and there were rumors that it was his fiancée. However, the photos published were not very clear. In addition, it was taken secretly that day, and Sci-fi was standing there. The position just blocks half of the girl's body, and only half of the side face can be vaguely seen, so now everyone is guessing who the girl is. After finishing the work of Soo-sun's drama on this day, her assistant handed a bag over. Someone sent it. After taking one look at the words above, she understood in her heart, I know, I have something to do today, so you don't need to worry about me. Go ahead. I'll leave by myself later. Okay, the assistant nodded, packed up her things, put them away, and left. That bag contained the information she wanted, and it was specially investigated by a private detective. Since there were photos in newspapers and magazines, even if they were blurry and unclear, she could find a way to find out. After meeting Yoon Chug-seo that day, she thought about it carefully for a long time and felt that one thing Chug-seo said was right. Happiness must be achieved by oneself. If she gave up now, it would mean that all her efforts in the past years were in vain. All my youth, all my dreams and wishes have come to nothing. And she didn't even know who her opponent was. She absolutely couldn't give up just like that. She didn't believe she would lose. Sitting in her car, she couldn't wait to open the bag and saw the photos inside, as well as some brief introductions, and several more photos. The first thing I looked at was of course the photos, side and front, but each one was very clear. Only. Squinting his eyes, Soo Jin-ran's fingertips slowly traced across the girl's cheek in the photo. It's very ordinary. It's just ordinary, the kind that wouldn't be dazzling if thrown into the crowd on the street. It looks like a sweet smile, but that's it, that's it. She stared at the photo for a while, as if she wanted to imprint this face in her mind, and then continued to look at other information. The information describes the girl's experience from school to work, as well as her family background. However, the intersection between her and Xiao cannot be found, and we don't know when they met. In short, what was exposed through newspapers and magazines, it is not easy to find these out of a blurry photo. Starting at the words and photos, he sneered and spread them out on his lap. The fire in Su Jianran's heart burned even brighter. It was exactly what she thought, an ordinary Cinderella. Her family background is ordinary, it can even be said to be poor, and her appearance is ordinary. If she is thrown into a play, she can only play a passerby. In other aspects, it can be said to be extremely boring, but this kind of woman makes her the most precious in her heart. Her belongings were taken away, and her brother actually asked her to give it up, right? Are all their men blind? She glanced at the residential address above again. She knew that address was a property in Xiao's name. She was still living there. How shameless! All the Cinderellas in the world are just pretending to be innocent and pitiful, trying to get along with the dragon and the phoenix. She will personally tear off this woman's mask and let her fourth brother see clearly who is the most suitable for him in the world. Who is it? Throwing all the information into the passenger seat, she started the car and drove in the direction of the address. Sitting at the window seat and looking downstairs, Arian's eyes were confused, and so was her heart. Su Feng is not here at the moment, so he went downstairs to buy some daily necessities for her so that she could sit here for a while. Otherwise, he would definitely not allow it. In the past few days, Su Feng has been accompanying her. Whether he was going to attend her mother's funeral, or she was going to buy something, or going out to eat, he would follow her. He didn't talk much, but he could be seen everywhere. I'm actually used to it. Knowing that he meant well, she really had no intention of seeking short-term consequences. She was really sad about her mother's death. Every time she thought about it, tears still flowed uncontrollably, but what else could she do? Life must go on. The current fire is deemed an accident, and government pensions and subsidies are being paid, but how much money can buy my mother's life? She even hated herself a little. If she had not chosen this place, if she had changed to another place, wouldn't it have happened? There is no regret medicine in this world. Suyun also told her that she must look forward to everything. She has tried hard to look forward, but it still takes some time, right? She breathed a long sigh of relief. Maybe it was time to cancel the holiday. She had been depressed for a while. I heard from Zhao Xian that Suyun had been very busy recently, but even so, she never urged her when she called her and just let her have a good rest and take good care of yourself. I should go back and help her. The doorbell rang suddenly. Arian turned her head and looked in the direction of the door. Didn't Su Feng bring the key? Getting up and walking over, the doorbell rang more and more urgently. When did you become so impatient? Something happened? With this thought in mind, I quickened my pace, walked to the door and opened it. Who are you? Arian was stunned and looked at the woman standing outside the door. She was a little confused. She didn't recognize her. You don't know me, Su Jianran felt that she should be pretending. Not only was she a household name, she was also a very popular star. How could she not recognize me? Maybe, she knew who she was, so she was just pretending. Looking at her proudly, Su Jianran passed her directly and walked into the house. He raised his head and looked around, as if he was inspecting his own house. I'm sorry, I don't know you, please get out right away. No matter who she was, it was really rude to break into someone else's house like this. Wu Arian was very unhappy and pointed at the door to chase away the guests. Turning back to look at her contemptuously, Su Jianran sneered, drive me away. Isn't this house nice to live in? You live in it and you treat it as your own? Do you really think of yourself as the hostess here? She said with a sneer. Although I have seen it in photos, when I saw it in person, I felt even more unconvinced. How could such an ordinary woman steal Xiao's heart? Still living in his house and then kicked her out? Who does she think she is? Arian was stunned for a moment. Listening to the meaning of her words, she probably knew that she was living here temporarily and that she was not the owner of the house, but the hostility was obvious. Who is this woman? End of this chapter. Shao's sweet wife, she is doted on. Author, Jin Yet. Chapter 257. Chapter 257, Make a Price. Who are you? Arian asked. Su Jianran smiled, walked directly to the sofa and sat down, crossed her legs together, raised her chin and looked at her, arrogant and dignified. Since you don't know who I am, you don't need to know. I am here today. I came here just to see what kind of vixen can charm him. Look now, it's nothing more than that. He looked up and down, not hiding his dislike for her. Woo Arian. What follows what? Why did she become more and more confused the more she listened? To be honest, I have seen a lot of women like you. You are right to want to grab a life-saving straw and marry into a rich family to change your destiny. But the mistake is that you are too overestimating your capabilities. Do you really think that, will you become a phoenix if you marry him? Do you know what kind of family the Si family is in? If a woman like you goes in, she will be eaten to the bone. Don't dream about being a young wife, said. For a girl from an ordinary family like this, intimidation is enough to scare them. First, give her a blow to shatter her dream of being a rich young wife, and then use inducements. Xiao would use her own interests to drive such a woman away. Disaster. But Su Jianran didn't realize yet that he had found the wrong person. Yes, that photo was taken of Xiao and other women, but there was something wrong with the angle of the candid photo at that time. In addition, there were bodyguards around, so the secret photo technique was difficult, and I didn't dare to take more photos, so I took one in a hurry. Su Yun was also there, but it happened to be from the back, while Xiao and Yan were from the side. From that angle, Su Yun, who was only half a figure from the back, was ignored, making people mistakenly think that she was with Xiao. The woman is Arian. This is a big mistake, but no one involved paid attention to it, so it spread like this. At first, they were just vague silhouettes, and no one involved came forward to respond. Everyone was just enjoying themselves, but only Su Jianran took the matter seriously and investigated it seriously. From the very beginning, the focus was wrong. Even if I checked, I would still be wrong all the way. She made a mistake, but her words made Arian understand that the other party had found the wrong person. Obviously, her words were aimed at the woman who was going to marry Xiao. What she was looking for was Su Yun. But by some strange combination of circumstances, it found its way to her body. Arian didn't know why she found fault, but since they had already come to her door, she had no intention of correcting her. She just tried to protect Su Yun from the madman. She was not in a good mood, so it didn't matter if she vented her anger. Thinking of this, she did not push Su Jianran away, but smiled nonchalantly. Yes, I just want to dream of being a young mistress, and I succeeded. Are you anxious? You bite me. You, Su Jianran didn't expect her to say that. He thought the other party would be ashamed or trembling with fear, but she looked like a female hooligan. Seeing the smug look on her face, Su Jianran took a few deep breaths and decided not to argue with this kind of woman. She pinched her purse and looked at her arrogantly. Let's get straight to the point. You're with him, no, is it just for money? How much do you want? Please give me a price. Arian almost laughed out loud. She had seen too many cliched scenes on TV, but she didn't expect to see it with her own eyes in real life. Not only did she see it with her own eyes, she also experienced it personally. Although it was just a mistake, it still happened. It's so funny. However, isn't it usually done by the hero's mother? When will it be the turn of a cat or a dog to play this role? Let's make a price, she seemed to be thinking seriously, holding back a smile and said, then I have to think about it carefully. She delayed for a while, and when she saw that Su Genran was getting impatient, she said, I haven't seen much of the world, why don't you make an offer and I'll listen. Su Genran squinted his eyes, a flash of contempt flashed in his eyes. She is indeed a vain woman. I really don't understand how Si Yao could fall in love with such a woman. He has seen all kinds of beauties, but he can be convinced by a daughter from a famous family. How could she be willing to accept such a woman? One price, 5 million, Su Genran pursed his lips and quoted a price. She felt that the price was enough to scare the other party to death. A woman who lives in a dilapidated small building, where the wires are old and catches fire, and who has worked for so many years and is just a small assistant, can see how much money she has seen. To put it bluntly, 5 million is enough for her to spend her whole life, so she should contented. She shouldn't think about things that don't belong to her. If you daydream too much, it's easy to wake up. 5 million, Wu Arian opened her eyes wide and stretched out her hand, waving 5 fingers in front of her eyes. Su Genran looked down on her greedy look, but she felt much more at ease. She was a little uneasy when she didn't see him at first. After all, she didn't know what kind of person he was, and she was afraid it would be difficult to deal with him. But now that she saw him, it was nothing more than that. 5 million is really not a small amount. After sighing twice, she looked at Su Yuran again, but who are you? Why should I believe that you will really give me this 5 million, also, what does it have to do with you whether I'm with him or not? It's only 5 million, I'm not going to deceive you for such a small role. After a pause, Su Genran said, but this money can do a lot of things for you. How about taking 5 million? Leave him, no, leave Su City, never come back, never appear in front of him again. As she spoke, she had already taken out the check from her bag and was about to write it. Looking at her impatient look, even if she didn't say anything, Arian could guess that this was probably one of President Sida's admirers and suitors, and he should also be the daughter of a wealthy family, and he still had a lot of money. It's money, otherwise I would have signed it if I signed it for 5 million. But dash. She protracted the last note, squinting at Su's heron, and took her time to adjust her appetite. Su Genran suddenly raised his head and looked at her nervously, what? However, he is the president of Huanya and the head of the Si family. He told me that he is very rich. Why, is he only worth 5 million? Then he is lying to me. I have to call him and ask him if he is bragging. He is not as rich as he says. As he said that, he pretended to take out the phone, as if he really wanted to call Si Yao. Wait a minute, Su Genran stopped her quickly, fearing that she would really hit her. After all, Si Yao couldn't let Si Yao know about this, at least not yet. Otherwise, how could she drive this woman away? Then tell me, how much do you want? He asked patiently. End of this chapter. Si Shao's sweet wife, she is doted on. Author, Jin Yet. Chapter 258. Chapter 258. Roll up your sleeves and do it. Su Genran thought silently in her heart that as long as the price was within her tolerance, she would agree to it and send her away as soon as possible. Yes, it's best to ask her to write a statement that she voluntarily gave up and left. In this case, it proves that she was not forced to leave, but that she took the money and left voluntarily. It also allows Si Yao to see clearly what this is. Such a woman. Should I ask for a price? Wu Arian frowned, as if she was in a dilemma, thinking as she muttered, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, you should at least give me 2 to 3 tens of billions or something. Su Genran almost spit out a mouthful of blood. If she hadn't heard it with her own ears, she really couldn't believe that this woman dared to speak like a lion. 2 to 3 tens of billions. Did she think she had dug 200 or 300 diamond mines? Or private? Are you playing tricks on me? Su Genran suddenly stood up and finally realized that she was playing tricks on herself. Her expression suddenly changed, and she was no longer as cheerful and angry as before. No, since you are joking with me, then I will just make a little joke with you. Reciprocity, she said disapprovingly. Am I kidding you? When did I kid you? Su Genran recalled carefully, not knowing what she was talking about. You know what he is and what his status is, and so do I. You know how much benefit and wealth he can get after becoming MRSSI, and so do I. If you want to send someone away with just 5 million, you look down on him. Does he still look down on the SI family? There are many people who throw money at people, but Aryan has been thinking about this problem before. If others are really seeking wealth, don't you know which side has greater benefits? Why would you give up a bigger cake just for your little money? This is illogical. So, you are unwilling to leave. Su Genran tore up the check coldly and realized that this woman was not as easy to deal with as she thought. Do you think you can really sit in the position of your boss's wife? That position, you can't just sit down if you want. Looking at her with his head tilted, Wu Arian folded his hands in front of his chest and half smiled. I can't say whether it will be your turn or not, but I know it won't be your turn. Otherwise, you wouldn't have to come to me in such a rage, she stabbed her again and said with a smile. This sentence was so harsh that it hit Su Genran's core immediately. Her face became embarrassed, and her hands hanging by her sides clenched into fists. Shut up. Yes, if she could, she wouldn't send a private detective to investigate and then come to her door. This is my place, and my mouth is my own. I can say whatever I want, so why should I shut up? If you don't want to hear it, you can leave. Her words became sharper and sharper, and Su Genran was so angry that she didn't remember reminding herself repeatedly before that she must not do anything, and that she must maintain the elegance of her class and not be like this vulgar woman. Now she only knows that this woman is really annoying, and she wants to tear off her proud face. You shameless vixen, Su Genran rushed forward and reached out to tear off Aryan's face. He wanted to scratch the face and tear off the skin to take a closer look to see if it was true. She turned out to be a foxy girl. Aryan actually didn't expect that she would take action. She was hit hard and she lost her balance for a moment, falling backward. Afraid of falling to the ground and being unable to get up, Su Genran propped herself up on the ground with her elbows, but Su Genran ignored her and fell to the ground with her, grabbing Aryan's face with both hands. Her sharp nails scratched her and it really hurt. Aryan felt the pain and her anger rose in her heart. In addition, she had already stabilized her body, so how could she suffer such a loss? Isn't it just a fight? Who is afraid of whom? Roll up your sleeves and do it. She spotted the gap in Su Genran's waving claws, stretched out her hand and firmly grasped her hair, holding it tightly. Unexpectedly, his scalp was pulled back, and Su Genran screamed, "Ah!" Tears were about to flow out. You dare to hit me? Since she has grown so big, let alone other people, her parents are reluctant to lay a finger on her, and they have always pampered her like a little princess. When she was in school, because her family conditions were good and she had an older brother to protect her, no one dared to touch her. As for later, she had so many suitors, and it was easy for her to enter the entertainment industry, and even directors might not dare. He whispered to her, but now this who knows nothing about heaven and earth dares to pull her hair. Su Genran was furious. It doesn't matter where the attack was, it was just scratching and scratching, kicking and screaming with both hands and feet. How dare you hit me, how dare you hit me? She doesn't know how to fight. She has never had a fight since she was a child. She just scratched her randomly. Arian was scratched in several places by her scratches. Looking at her again, she looked like a crazy woman. Out of breath, he suddenly turned over, suppressed her directly below, occupied the advantageous position above, and directly hit her with his fists. While beating and scolding at the same time, You dare to hit me, why shouldn't I dare to hit you? I'm so spoiled by you. Su Genran was originally angry, and she was not very good at fighting. After being suppressed by Wu Arian, she was beaten and hit again and again, and she couldn't resist anymore. I kicked and scratched before, and I didn't move after being beaten after a few punch. I only cried. You hit me, you dare to hit me, I want you to die. I must kill you. Hey. You're being tough, aren't you? Arian was about to stop, but when she heard this, she became angry again. She pinched her cheeks with both hands and pulled them to both sides. Who are you killing? Let me ask you, who did you kill? Wow. Su Genran cried until she burst into tears. Arian looked disgusted and frowned. Just when she was about to let go of her hand, she heard an exclamation, what are you doing? Arian, Su Feng had just returned from shopping when he heard something was wrong. He rushed over in a few steps and saw the little woman riding on another person, obviously fighting. Ignoring the things in my hands, I threw them by the door. I rushed over and pulled Arian up immediately, looking up and down. Are you okay? There were several cuts on his face, his hair was a mess, and there were blood stains on the scratches. A flash of distress flashed in his eyes, and he subconsciously reached out to wipe the blood drops with his thumb. You are injured. It's okay, she wiped her face casually. She was so proud. She is worse than me. Looking at the woman still lying on the ground crying, she felt that she had won a great victory. End of this chapter. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Shao's sweet wife, she is doted on. Author, Jin Yet. Chapter 259. Chapter 259. Miss Su, calm down. He glanced suspiciously in the direction of her gaze. At this sight, Su Feng was startled. Miss Su. Huh, do you know him? Arian said casually, flipping up her messy hair. Su Feng didn't know how Su Genran found this place and even had a fight with Arian. His head was full of questions, but now was not the time to ask questions, so he hurriedly knelt down to help her. Miss Su, why are you here? He looked at Su Genran's embarrassed look and didn't know what to say for a moment. Su Genran's appearance here is really sudden. The key is that now that she has been beaten like this, how should she explain it? Su Feng only felt that one head was as big as two. Su Genran was still crying. She felt that she had been greatly wronged. In addition, she had been in a bad mood these days, and all the depression piled up, making her cry very sadly. The most important thing is that she sees Su Feng now. Seeing Su Feng, it means that Yao must be nearby, maybe coming soon. With the help of his hand, he stood up and said while crying, Su Feng, where is my fourth brother? Mr. Si is not here, I am here to take care of Miss Wu. Su Feng replied. Miss Su, are you okay? Raising her face with hazy eyes, she sobbed and said, the way you look at me, still look like, okay. Arian on the side couldn't help but burst into laughter. Just now, she was so arrogant, pretending to be worth 25,800,000 yuan, and wanted to break up the couple with a broken check. Now, not to mention that she is as swollen as a pig's head, but her makeup is also smudged, her face is also smeared, and her originally enchanting big waves it has become a mess of weeds, and it really makes me laugh to death. Su Feng frowned and glanced at her, meaning to tell her not to light the fire again. Sure enough, her smile made Su Jianran even more angry. How dare you laugh? Su Feng. You saw it? She was the one who beat me today. I must let my parents seek justice for me. I would like to ask my fourth brother, is he going to marry such a vulgar and savage woman? Pointing angrily at Wu Arian, she suddenly felt that she had finally caught her. Right? He was beaten by her. How could a woman who knew how to hit someone, such a brutal and rough woman, marry into the Si family as a young mistress, and be in charge of the Si family's internal affairs in the future? She doesn't deserve it. Su Feng was comforting her softly, but when he heard what she said next, he was confused. Mary. Looking at Arian with a suspicious look on her face, she smiled and said nothing. She stood there like a victorious rooster, standing tall and proud. Su Feng. Don't be complacent. The Si family will not let a woman like you in. Just wait, you're done. Su Jianran wiped his face and stopped crying. Miss Su, you mean, our boss wants to marry her? Unable to hold it back, Su Feng asked, looking at Su Jianran and then at Yan. What do you mean? You don't know? Su Jianran looked at him with wide eyes and surprise. How can it be? Su Feng is Si Yao's personal assistant, part-time driver, and bodyguard. He has been following him since a very early age. He is considered the closest person to Si Yao. How could he not know? What do you know? Su Feng was puzzled. Also, has word spread about Mr. C's marriage? No, it sounds like Miss Su is getting married soon. But, isn't Mr. Si already married? He didn't understand the situation clearly, and he didn't dare to speak randomly for fear of saying something wrong or missing something. If you don't know, why are you here to take care of her? Didn't Si Yao ask you to do this? She pointed her finger at Yan, looking like she was going to accuse her. It was arranged by the Secretary General, but... Just as Su Feng was about to explain, Arian interrupted him and said, did you hear that? It was Si Yao who sent him to take care of me. He also let me live in this house. No matter how jealous you are, no matter how much you want to break it up, use it. You are useless. He stretched out an index finger and shook it at her first, then flipped his wrist in the opposite direction, then moved his thumb down and poked her hard. This action almost made Su Jianran's nose become angry. She said hey and was about to rush forward, but Su Feng held her back. Ms. Su, calm down. He was not very good at comforting others, so that was all he could say. It seems that Su Jianran found the wrong person, but Arian didn't know why, but she didn't tell her that she had found the wrong person. Instead, she deliberately misled her and made her angry. Okay, I won't do it. After being pulled by him like this, Su Jianran calmed down, looked at Su Feng and said, but you can see clearly, I didn't do it, she was the one who hit me. When you get in front of Si Yao, don't open your eyes and say nonsense. Su Feng. Humph. Just wait, she said harsh words to Arian. She straightened her hair, picked up her bag that had been dropped long ago, and walked out of the room. Looking back at Yan, and then at Su Jianran who rushed out, he hesitated for a moment, but decided to stay and not move. Why don't you go after it? He bent down and picked up all the things scattered on the ground. Hey, I didn't pay attention just now. I knocked down a lot of things and broke 2 cups. It's really not worth it. I have to pay for it no matter what. Give to others. The picture was happy at the time, but the wallet was not happy when I looked back. Su Feng went over to help her clean up, and brought a broom and dustpan to clean up. Why did you mislead her? He asked while cleaning. Misleading her? Arian sneered and pointed at her nose. She didn't figure it out herself. She rushed up and said that I was a vixen and a bad woman. Since she thinks so, then I might as well be like her. All you wish for. She shrugged. She is an adult, you're welcome. Su Feng couldn't talk to her, so he could only do what he could silently. After cleaning up, and wiping the table and everything, Arian sat down heavily, feeling that all the emotions she had been holding back in the past few days were released, and she felt much more comfortable than before. So tired. Digging out a few small things from somewhere, Su Feng came over with cotton swabs, iodine solution, and a few band-aids. He looked at her and said, "Wash your face and I'll apply the medicine to you." After reacting, she touched her cheek. It really hurt, but it was just a small nail scratch, so it shouldn't matter. "No need, this little injury will be fine tomorrow," she waved her hand happily. Instead of trying to persuade her, Su Feng just said, "Human nails are very dirty, with a lot of bacteria and dirt hidden in them. There are many precedents for infections caused by scratches caused by nails. For relatively minor ones, maybe you can just rest for 2 days, but there are cases where you may get infected and disfigured later if you don't clean it properly." Wu Arian. Stop, 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 let me wash it, can't I wash it? If he keeps talking, I'm afraid he won't be able to keep his face. End of this chapter. Shao's sweet wife, she is doted on. Author, Jin Yet. Chapter 260. Chapter 260. Isn't your company worth the price? I went to the bathroom to wash my face and looked in the mirror. I was really embarrassed. Her hair was messed up and she grabbed a handful with her hands, and many strands fell off. This woman's attacks were really ruthless. However, she wasn't much better. He pulled down a lot of her hair, and those few punches hit her face hard, making her scream. What's more, she is obviously Su Yun's love rival. There is nothing wrong with helping her friend teach her love rival a lesson. Thinking like this, I felt that I was very righteous and great. I smoothed my hair in front of the mirror, washed my face and neck, and then walked out of the bathroom. "Sit down." Su Feng pointed to the seat in front of him. Arian curled her lips and said, "No need. It's just a minor injury. The injury is not serious, but the number of cases of tetanus infection caused by a small injury every year is about 1 in 600,000, and the number of deaths due to tetanus infection is." Yes, I'll wipe it. Isn't it okay if I wipe it?" Originally, her impression of Su Feng was that he was dull and boring, but after getting along with him for the past few days, she found that this person was actually cold on the outside and hot on the inside. Say he's not good at words. He'll spout a bunch of high-sounding truths that will leave you speechless. Say he's good at talking. When nothing happens, the two of you can sit there all afternoon and he won't say a word. This is a complex of extreme contradictions, but frankly speaking, he is still pretty good to himself. When the cotton swab was dipped in the medicine and applied to the scratched area on her face, she couldn't help but gasp, "Hey, it really hurts." "Why did you fight with her?" Su Feng asked while applying medicine carefully. "You have to find out clearly that she hit me first." "I was just acting in self-defense," Arian said confidently. Glancing at her, Su Feng continued, "Then deliberately misleading her and pretending to be Mr. C's fiancé is also self-defense. I have already said that she made a mistake out of her own mind, and it is none of my business. She decided that I was, and even if I said I was not, she would think that I deliberately lied to her. With that paranoid and arrogant personality, I would believe that she is not the only one who has a ghost." Humbling his fingers, Su Feng felt that what she said made sense. Su Jianran is indeed willful, but extremely stubborn. When he is with Si Yao, he often has the opportunity to meet her. This young lady does not have a very good temper. By the way, who is that woman? She's so arrogant, and she throws money at me. Pretend I haven't seen the money. She felt angry just thinking about it. It's really a lot of money. Even though she was having fun with her words at the time, it was not because the person involved was not her at all. The money was just a verbal figure, just for fun. If only she really had that much money. Why did she throw money at you? Su Feng felt funny after hearing what she said. It's a very cliché plot on TV. She said she would write me a check to leave Sci-Yao, and she also said I would decide the price. I really made the offer, but she regretted it and quit again. I couldn't bear it. I just complained, it's true, if you can't afford it, then don't play, how embarrassing. Have you made an offer? Su Feng was surprised and a little curious. How much did you offer? What could make Su Jianran regret it must be a big number. However, when he heard Wu Arian say, I said 2 to 3 billion is about the same, he was still shocked. You, really dare to ask for it, he said with emotion. I didn't realize that this petite, crying and laughing girl was so courageous, so Su Jianran would have to regret it, and no matter who he caught, he would regret it. Why, isn't your boss worth the price? She asked with a slight snort. Su Feng. Then don't dare to say this. After giving her the medicine, Su Feng glanced at a piece of paper under the seam of the sofa. He bent down to pick it up and saw that it was Su Jianran's check that he hadn't had time to fill in the numbers. After thinking about it, he put it away and stuffed it in the pocket. What do you want that for? She also saw clearly what it was and asked curiously, you don't want to go to her to ask for a price, do you? Su Feng's eyes twitched. What price did he offer? It's okay, it might be useful to keep it, he said calmly. Oh, Arian nodded and went to get her cell phone. I'll make a call. Watching her get up and walk into the bedroom, Su Feng thought for a while, he should also make a phone call. With Su Jianran making such a fuss, he didn't know what was going to happen. He has experienced the eldest lady's ability to make trouble, and has also experienced her behavior of being persistent and persistent, so it is necessary to give Mr. Si a warning first. Arian, this was the first time in these days that Arian took the initiative to call her. Su Yun was still very happy. Why are you free to call me today? Hey, I'm a busy guy, I don't have time any day. After laughing at herself, Arian said softly, Sister Yun, I'm sorry, I've been working so hard for you recently. Su Yun disagreed, it's okay. You have had a good rest recently. When you have a good rest, come back and help me. Well, I'm ready to cancel my vacation. He sounded much more relaxed. Anyway, I've already done all the things I need to do at home, so I can't just rest. After a pause, she subconsciously lowered her voice and said, Sister Yun, how is the matter between you and Mr. Si? Su Yun was confused and didn't understand what she meant by suddenly asking, what's going on? It's just like that. No, are you ready to make your relationship public? Well, probably. What's wrong? Su Yun felt strange. When did you become so nosy? Well, that's right. After hesitating for a moment, Arian decided to tell her what happened and give her a heads up. A woman came to the door today and thought I was you. Ah. That's not what I meant actually. She was probably looking for the woman that Mr. Si wanted to marry, but for some reason she made a mistake and thought it was me, so she came to me. Su Yun turned off the machine and walked to a quieter place. Su Yun still didn't quite understand. Who? It seems that the surname is Su. I remember that Su Feng called her Miss Su. Although they had a fight, he still couldn't figure out who the other party was. Su. After searching her mind carefully, she couldn't think of anyone. The key was that during the time she was with Sci-Yao, she didn't see any other women around him. Hey, you don't have to be afraid anyway, I've already beaten her, I'll teach her a lesson for you. Huh? Su Yun was stunned. You beat her? She was still confused after hanging up the phone. She felt that Arian's words had made her confused, and she was even more confused. When she saw Sci-Yao when she got home, the first question that popped up in her mind was, who is that Miss Su? End of this chapter.